Without journalism, a lot might not happen. We are not spies. We are the eyes of society. We are the ears of society because what we hear, we tell. Women whose wombs were cut because they were pregnant and they want to see how a Tutsi child looks like, only about 150 survived. Looking into the sea and seeing fish feeding on people's eyes, and you come out of that and you come to do this interview. You carry this burden, it's a trauma inside you. If you're going to think you're going to bring your journalism into a battlefront, you are dead. Soldiers can look very friendly to you, but that's until the firing starts. Journalists can actually provide a basis for intelligence. Everybody needs journalism.
His name is Kassim Kayiira. Today we are going to delve into different issues, and more so we are going to focus on the safety of journalists in and out of the newsroom. Today we have a sit down extensively to discuss these issues. You're welcome to the show. My name is Laura Nalugwa. Kassim, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Laura.
I want us to go directly to the part where you done with uni, fresh with your journalism degree, you have gone to a foreign country. You're in Rwanda. Let's begin there.
It didn't feel foreign because half of me comes from Rwanda, and therefore it was kind of the second home. But yes, you're right. It was a different kettle of fish. But unlike many Rwandans or people who have any Rwandan heritage, I'd been going to Rwanda, unlike many that were only sort of had just gone to Rwanda for the very first time. I was going to Rwanda from the 70s, the 80s. The last time I was there was 1988. That is before now the 1990 war began, when the RPF invaded Rwanda from Uganda. So I was only just 2 years out of the country. Other than that, I was sort of in the country at different levels. My family, my auntie's husband was Uganda's ambassador to Rwanda during Idi Amin's time. So had access to sort of diplomatic advantages or access to such information that is probably just within diplomatic circles, allowed me to sort of learn a lot in between. I was very young, but I actually grew up faster than my age. So I actually look much younger than my, I probably look much older. I actually look much younger than my age. In comparison, I grew up really, really fast because of the exposure. And I was a very keen person in terms of picking up stuff.
After the 2 years away.
Yeah, so 1988, so 1990, the whole time of the war, I was not in Rwanda. So first time I get into Rwanda, set foot into Rwanda. Kigali was captured in July, 4th of July. I enter Kigali about the 23rd of July. So still at uni, sort of completing uni in Uganda, but I go in there to sort of see, how different things were happening. And this was a totally different Rwanda. So completing uni, and then I've gone in, managed to get into a job. It's a story that is also interesting how I got into journalism, because my first degree wasn't in mass communication. I'm a teacher by qualification. I'm a history and economics teacher. So I did education. It's BA education, majoring in economics and history. But I got to Rwanda because I was running the university paper. I was the Minister of Information at university. So despite being in education, I was already crossing and sort of, I was the University Information Officer, the Guild Information Minister. So getting to Rwanda, it's a whole mess. This was a country of about 7, 8 million at that time. Genocide happens, you get close to 1 million plus Tutsis that were killed, or Rwandans in general, let me use that. Rwandans were killed during the genocide. Of course, the bulk of them were Tutsis. There were few and far between Hutus that were killed, either who were trying to resist what was happening or within the course of, the killings. And so you have more than 1 million people that have been killed, more than 1 million Rwandans that have been killed. You have close to 3-4 millions that were coming from outside the country, mainly from Uganda. People that had never stepped in Rwanda, they had just been dreaming about Rwanda and hearing about Rwanda. You have people that came in from Congo, you have people that came in from Tanzania, a huge chunk that came from Tanzania, a huge chunk that came from neighboring Burundi. So all these neighboring countries had a contribution. Quite a significant number in Kenya, from Kenya. I grew up in Kenya, so I had like lots, I could just bump into Rwandans. Well, the people that I didn't know, but they would speak the language, and I would just pick up and we start talking. So all these people now, and people were coming from Europe as well, so you had quite a significant number in Belgium, in Switzerland, these were really, and France, these were like hotbeds of Rwandans, and then Canada as well. And then the US, a few in the US, a very few from the UK. It was a melting pot. You just have to bring all these people together who have to live. And then there were those ones who were in Rwanda before that, mostly who didn't even leave Rwanda before that. People who had lived in Rwanda and all they knew was Rwanda within their own situation. So that's where you have even now the adages of names that were particular words or connotations that were being used for the different people. Everybody who came from Uganda was referred to as Omusajja, regardless of whether you were a man or a woman.
Specify where you're coming from.
Yeah, so if you had Omusajja, that would mean they've come from Uganda. The original Rwandans, there used to be a petrol station called Société de Pétrolier Cyangugu. Brief, it is SOPECHA, so Société Pétrolier de Cyangugu. So they referred to everybody who was found in Rwanda as a SOPECHA. So either a SOP for brief, or it would be a SOPECHA. So when you hear Uonumu SOP, you would know this is a person who was originally from Rwanda. They had people from Burundi, they were called Abajepe. Abajepe was a connotation used to refer to the presidential guards, you know, how smart they are, how they're tall, how the good muscles. So you had the girls who had come from Burundi, they were the hot thing. Girls from Uganda, they were Rwandans, they were beautiful, but they had this, something that wasn't. So those ones from Burundi came in and they were like the polished ones. They were sort of the jepe. So you have that
Maria
kind
Antoinette.
Then you have those from Congo. They were referred to as Dubai. I don't know, why refer to Dubai when you are referring to Congolese. So you had all these different connotations, but it just meant you come to a Rwanda that, as a journalist beginning your career, then from a journalist's point of view, you had journalists who had participated in the genocide, broadcasting the genocide. Reporters, say, for example, for Radio Télévision Libre de Mille Collines, the RTLM. Then you had even Radio Rwanda, there were a few. Then you have journalists who had fled the country as a result of that. There were those who had been arrested and put into jail. There were those who had been killed. So now there was a huge vacuum within the entire employment sector in Rwanda. The public service had sort of been shaken, and therefore having to recruit people now. That's why now Rwanda has like very young people, even in senior managerial positions. So this is what I come to find myself getting dipped into. In terms of your reporting, you have to have all the sensitivities of all of these. There are those rescapés, the survivors of the genocide, still traumatized by what has happened over that period of time. And your stories are such that, for example, now it was very tricky to fall in love with a girl who had survived the genocide. Because if you felt like you no longer needed them and you left them, they could easily find you and start crying in public and sort of say, that's him, that's him. And people would not even wait to ask, that's him who did what? The assumption was genocide, and you could easily have been lynched to death. So these are all these sensitivities. You have people that have come from traditions that are not so open to talk about things. You have people that have been brought up in a dictatorship, because Habyarimana's government through the 70s, 80s was a dictatorship. In fact, he was called Ichinani, Habyarimana, as the president then. Ichinani means the impossible one. So you're coming to, this is the government that has just fallen. Habyarimana gets killed in a plane crash after the plane had been shot. You have an interim government that is so full of extremists who had even wanted to commit the genocide, like full swing. Habyarimana could have let it happen slowly. These ones were really like determined to make it happen. And then you get the RPF who are coming in now as victors who have won a war. You have all these dynamics, and you have to put them into a context. And as a reporter, you have to have all these sensitivities. Anything short of that and you would end up in trouble. So this is the Rwanda that I enter in. Yeah.
You've gone there as a fresh journalist. What was your first story like?
Very funny. So I got taken to TV. The way I got my TV job, I had gone to Rwanda. I went to a bank. It is called BCDI. It was the Banque Commerciale de Développement International. It was like the commercial development bank of international. And I left Kampala. My aunt, who used to work in the UN, she's worked in the UN like for the longest of times. She's just retired very recently now. She had called me and said, Kassim, come to Kigali. There is a new bank, and I think your public finance and bank is good. The knowledge you have, you might be able to get the job. So I went, I got there, I got shortlisted for the interview. I did interview one. We were 60 candidates. They only needed 5. We didn't know they needed 5, but we were 60 candidates at the start. I came up top in the first interview. So they cut from 60 to 45, so they took off 15. We went for the second interview. A lady called Agatha, who I think actually is probably the deputy governor of the central bank in Rwanda now, if I'm not wrong. She's quite in a senior managerial position now at the central bank in Rwanda, but we were now in queue for the interview there. She became first and I was second. So another 15 taken off, we remained 30. Third interview, again another 15 taken off, I went back to being first. So we were left to 10 and they needed 5. I was the first person to be called in. I went in and got in the boss, the PDG or President Director General, he was like the CEO, was a man called Albert Kadisa. So he calls me and he says, Kassim, yeah, so I go find the board in there. We've called you in first. Your performance has really been exceptional, but we are sorry, we can't give you the job because you are not Rwandan. And what had happened is because I'd done, when you finish uni, you're doing so many CVs, you're always moving with your brown envelope. I quite often see guys with their brown envelopes and I'm almost saying to them, I know what you're going through. Yeah, it's quite an interesting part to be in. So I'd done my CV and I had so many copies and you always put nationality and it was Ugandan. So by the time I went, many of the Rwandans at that time, including President Kagame, for example, had all been Ugandan. So I didn't feel like being Ugandan would be an issue that would, it didn't even cross my mind. So to get to there, and I'm told I can't be given a job because I'm not Ugandan, I'm not Rwandan, that really hurt. It really, really dimmed my spirits after going through, so why did you allow me to go through all of this to sort of deny me this? But I'm a very strong believer in God. And I knew if the same God had allowed me to go through the interview and proven myself through the process, maybe this wasn't for me. I said quietly, it was a painful, very, very painful experience. I said, Ya Allah, you know best. You've not given me this. I know you have something for me. So I have a friend. He was an electrician. He repairs radios and TVs. I called him. I say, guy, this is what has happened. He had my mood and he just thought, I need to see Kassim. So he calls me, we go to Le Glaçon. It was the first takeaway in Rwanda. And he buys me chips and chicken to sort of calm me down. So as we sat down, we are having a conversation. I take him through the entire process. How, I'd been fast and all of that. So while we are talking, he's Rwandan, Ugandan. We always have like one leg here, one leg there. Yeah, and so while we are seated, some guy comes wearing their normal clothes. He says, excuse me, do you mind if I sit here? Because it was a table for 4 and it was the 2 of us. We said, yeah, we don't mind. So he came, he sat, we didn't mind him. We just continued our story. Meanwhile, he's just eavesdropping into our conversation. And he's listening and I'm saying, oh my God, this is what I went through. It really hurt me. I have actually much more stronger connections to Rwanda than most of these people, including those ones who have been interviewing me. I've been in Rwanda when they were not in Rwanda. I was always there, coming in and going out.
Literally pouring everything out.
Yeah, so it's here. But then I just thought. But then I finished by saying, "But I know if this wasn't mine, then God probably has something better." But then part of me was also, even with that strong faith, I was sort of asking myself, if God knew what He wanted for me, why let me go through all this just to sort of end up there? Yeah. Long story short, we are sat in Rwanda. They've already begun testing TV. It's running on a test. And Rwanda didn't have a TV before the genocide. So for the first time, they're sort of getting a TV coming on. They've got a few journalists here and there who are on. So someone came on and was reading news, and I was thinking, this English.
Still seated at the restaurant.
We are in the restaurant, and the TV is just hanging, like they would have it on the wall. Yeah, normally they would have the Canal Plus, Canal Horizon, the DSTV channels, the French sort of version of that. And so this guy comes on and I say, oh, this English. And I say, if anyone ever made a mistake of getting me on that screen, they will not regret it. This guy is listening, and he's finished his tea. I think he had had a boulette there, those meatballs, they're called boulette. So he had had his 2 meatballs, he had had the tea, and he was standing up to leave. And he said, guys, I'm sorry, I eavesdropped into your story.
The whole conversation.
It was difficult not to listen in. It was compelling in how it was being told. But Kassim, I think I can help you. And I'm thinking, I had it all. I had the qualifications. I went there and I didn't get it. And this ordinary person, when he stood up, then I saw the pistol. So it's then that it rang a bell that if we were talking all the nonsense, I was done for. So a guy now says, oh, give me your contacts, give me your CV. And then I hand him the CV, only to remember straight away, nationality is still Ugandan. I rush to the lady at the counter and I say, do you have any Tipex? You know, that's
whitewash.
The whitewash. I said, do you have any? And she said, happily, yes, I do have it. So got a Tipex, went on through you can imagine the rest of everything is all nicely typed out. And now I have to go over, paint over the nationality and then write Rwandan in pen with a black pen. So I hand him the paper, he goes. 1 week later, I'm just whiling away time. My auntie, that one who works in the UN, used to own like kiosks. So there was a kiosk near the hospital, the main hospital, CHK, Centre Hospital Kigali. CHK, and then the bank was just about opposite. So many of the bank staff would come for their lunch and I was always wearing my tie. So I used to work in my auntie's kiosk and I was serving. I grew up in a restaurant. All our lives we've been around food, and I'm a very good chef. I love cooking. I love eating. So I would come in, and these guys are sort of surprised. They are from the bank. They see a guy who is wearing a tie and serving mandazi and the bongo, the sour milk. So I served them so nicely. And so I'm there, and we used to have a phone. So mobile phones had not yet come. So it was landlines, and people would come, and it was a pay phone. So people would come, make a call, and then pay. It would have a unit counting how many they had done, and then would get them to pay. So I called the guy because I had his number. It's Captain Eugene in Hambara. And I called him and I say, oh, Captain Eugene says, oh my God, Kassim, I misplaced your phone number. So I couldn't get in touch like all this time. You can think I forgot. No, I didn't forget, but I couldn't get back in touch with you. How I can even find you. He said, but yeah, so you remember the place we met? I said, Les Glaçons. Yes, he said, Les Glaçons. Go there. I left a note for you. Take that note to the TV and you'll see the director of the TV. Just like that. So I walk, I didn't even have to wait. It was like, yeah, my cousin sister Jane. I said, Jane, look after the staff, I'm off. Went to the Glaçons and there was a post-it. My job was got off a post-it, a yellow post-it. So I pick up the post-it, I look at it and I'm thinking, oh my God, is that what I'm taking to the director of the TV? I said, well, that's what he's told me. Went there, huge security. I mean, it's after war, one of the biggest things that anyone who is taking over power does. You get a radio, you get the national TV, you are in control. So it was very, very heavily guarded. I go there, hello, Mraho. I get the stick. I said, can I be taken to the director, please? He's late now. God have mercy on him. It's Emmanuel Rushinga Bigwe. And the note was taken. It didn't even take 2 minutes. They were calling me in. Just like that. And I got there with all the security. A post-it was just what got me in. So I go in, I meet him. He says, Kassim, namnagani habari. Captain Hambara is my very good friend. We come from the bush. You know, the bush stories. Yeah, and he's told me about you, so tell me about yourself. We have a conversation there. I said, the thing I can tell you honestly, I don't have a job at the moment, but I can take you in as an intern. I'll guarantee you two things: lunch at work and transport back home.
What more?
When do you think you can start? I said, sir, every day that I leave home, I'm ready to start. In fact, I heard something from the military doctrine. Whenever a soldier wakes up, the first thing they do once they get out is make their bed. Because when you make your bed, you've said clearly, I'm not coming back in. It's a new day. The only way is forward. And so when I say to him, every time I leave home, I'm ready to start. He says, okay, that's fine. You've come in at a very good time as well. Editorial meeting is just about to start. I'll take you in and introduce you to the guys. So Newsroom, you can imagine everybody's in there. Of course, everybody, it's just the TV starting. They've been there for a few months, sort of doing all the practice and stuff. So I get in and I'm introduced. Hey, hello, ni Kassim Kayiira, no munyamakuru mushya, aje gukora stage. So stagiaire or stage is internship. They'll be with us here doing a bit of internship. And I introduce myself. Hello, my name is Kassim, born in Uganda, grew up in Kenya, and I speak all these many languages.
I have been all over.
Yeah. As a refugee, in some instances. Not too much to give away, but I just finished the introduction. So so they put me, director left me there. The guy that I saw reading the news is there. He sort of listens to me and says, yeah, your English is good. So I said, yeah, it's good, you recognize, that's in my heart. First story is what you asked me, and that's how I'm getting there. I thought it would be good just to sort of lay the foundation. So I'm assigned to a lady. She's still there at the national TV up to now.
Oh.
Yes, she's called Wera Caritas. And I don't know whether she remembers this story, and I'm sure by the time I've told this story, probably it has gotten to her. But we belong to a WhatsApp group as well, and so she's never brought it up. I'm assigned to a lady called Wera Caritas. She was a broadcaster from Burundi. RTNB was the Radio Television Nationale Burundi. It's the national broadcaster in Burundi. So some of them, actually, there were quite a number that had come from there, and they were like the posh ones. Like I said about the GPs, there was just something about, so progressed about, everyone else. So I'm assigned to her, and our first story is to go and do a story about dogs. They had brought dogs, specialist dogs, that were going to detect landmines because of the war. Many places had been mined up, and therefore the landmines were killing so many people, actually for quite some time. In Rwanda, many people, quite a significant number. The landmine doesn't necessarily kill you, it actually maims more than it kills you. So it will break your leg and you'll be disabled. You might not die, but it gives you that lasting sort of impact that changes your life. So we go there, and the person we were going to interview later on became the director of the airports in Rwanda. He was called Major Joshua Mbaraga at that time. We go to him, the dogs are there all, like looking at us. I'm scared of dogs. I have like very long histories with dogs. Growing up in Mbarara there in Kakoba, we had a dog called Jack. There in Nkokonjeru, you'd just go and the dog would chase you. It used to enjoy the chase. It would chase you and it sees you so scared, it runs ahead of you and then stops. And one guy just went one day and just went down to his knees and says, "Oh, nashijaka kaninkumanya, tonde kanka jenda." So I had all these memories of dogs, and here I am. Of course, they were controlled. Yeah. So we go to interview the guy. Guy speaks French, speaks English, speaks Kinyarwanda. Lady goes first. She only speaks French and Kinyarwanda, so no English. So interviews the guy in French and then in Kinyarwanda, and then I'm asking her to have the microphone as well to do the interview in English since I speak English. Lady pulled the mic off me in front of the guest. It was just one of those most embarrassing moments of one's life. She said, "What do you know? Your first day into journalism and you just want to interview," and the guy is there. So he looked on, of course he couldn't intervene. It's your business. I
don't know how you guys
work. I don't know how you work. It's your business. You know how you run these things. But you could see that he felt pity for me. And that pity in my heart, I prayed and I said, "God, I pray to you before I die to be able to show this lady what I'm capable of.
You sure did.
I did. In 3 months' time. So we come back. It was a weird one because we come back. TV broadcasts in 3 languages. So Kinyarwanda is at 7:30, 8:30 French, 9:30 English is last because it was just getting introduced into Rwanda. So it would be mainly guys who came from Uganda, the diplomats and so on.
So at that time, 7 and 8 was their prime time.
Well, both. Even 9:30 would be prime time, but it was sort of getting away out of prime time. So prime time is the 7:30. You have Kinyarwanda, you have the bigger audience. 8:30, you have got all the officers now, officials back in their homes. 9:30, everyone has already had dinner and they can't wait to go to bed. So people now, because not many people knew English in Rwanda, they would just say, hey, good evening if viewers Araj. Whenever I would be reading news because I would say good evening viewers. So they called me good evening if viewers. That's where we came from. You can see all the progress now, but it started somewhere. And to be a part of that, I think being part of what made it what it is now, I think is quite an interesting one. So we come back, we broadcast our story. It felt bad because in the feedback they were sort of asking, this guy speaks English. How comes, Kassim, you ended up having to translate what Caritas, had done? And I was scared of sort of having to say Caritas didn't allow me to do, but I went to the director and I said, she got the microphone off me. So second day, when we asked me about my first story, so let me not delve so much, but that was my first story. Went down well because I'd voiced it, but voicing over someone who speaks the language just feels so silly. So it wasn't the best experience, but that was my first story.
So were you given a byline? Because as a fresh journalist, that's a big deal. Did the story have your byline?
No, it had reporting by Kassim Kayiira. Yeah, so it was like, because we did a story, it was not like just the interview. The interview was just a clip within the story. So I'd done the rest, I'd voiced over, I'd done a piece to camera. So that was, like already sort of started, it was sort of owning the story. But then having to use a French clip voiced over in English just didn't feel right.
Well, because I'm saying that because I have had and experienced that you find a journalist who has been already in the field, has been working already, you're fresh in the field, and you come and you work with them and you do all the donkey work, and at the end of the day you're thinking, oh my God, my name is going to appear on this story. And maybe you're watching TV or you're reading the paper.
You told family even to watch out.
It's
coming.
Yes, that story is my story. Wait, you're going to hear my voice, or you're going, and then before you know it, there's somebody else's name. How did you, how would you tell, what would you tell a journalist in such a case? That they're new, they're fresh, and this is their first experience.
There will be a moment. I think that's the one thing that you tell yourself. The fact that you are there is good enough. It doesn't matter at the end of the day because your input is there. Your team probably will know, they might not, but they will know that you did a bit of, the donkey work. And these are the people that matter. To the audience, your time is there. And when you do your breakthrough, nobody, can take it back. I had that setback on that very first day. I didn't even feel like as a setback. I just felt bad that I could have interviewed the person and I didn't. But it didn't stop me in my tracks because one, I just felt lucky to be there as an intern who has transport back home. I was living in a place called Nyandungu, which is just below the airport. It's quite a distance from Kigali, from where we were working. Without transportation, I don't know how we would have done it, but all the staff at the TV would be dropped off at home. You would come, you'd make your way into work, but you would be dropped off because we would be finishing late. Especially like with English, now you're finishing at 10. So that was kind of late. Second day, the price of beans had gone up, and beans in Rwanda, in Rwanda, you don't joke with beans. Anything touches beans, that's trouble. So the price had gone up and I went to do reporting, and now I owned my own story. I did my gymnastics to the story. Come back and it's fantastic. Feedback the following morning in the editorial newsroom, that was spotless.
So Kassim, with all this time, in the media, I know there's been so many stories that might have probably stuck to you until now, but there's that one story that you did and it stuck to you, changed your mind, changed the way you see life. What is that one story and what did you learn from it?
I would be lying if I said I have one.
I know there are so many.
No, and I have to be honest.
Oh yeah.
So you're really putting me on the spot. Yes. Because there are times you think this is the one and then suddenly another one comes and just beats it. And then it's the variety of them is quite interesting because it's not all hard stories. There are some that are sort of soft stories that have an impact, though the impact is so huge. So honestly, I don't have one that I would say that this is the only one. But there will be some that will be like sort of top ranked in terms of, you know, how they follow each other. Yes.
In the line that I'm speaking of is the line where you felt like your mental health was tampered with.
Many. That's why I'm saying for me, it's more than just telling a story. It's a passion. So I'm in there. I feel like, you know, I'm feeling like I'm part of this. I'm part of, you know, it is difficult sometimes to distance yourself from the story, especially if it's a deep story. I'll give you just a few, and probably that will give you the magnitude of them. I talked about getting into Rwanda immediately after the genocide and all the stuff that had happened. Now, I interviewed up to 200 women rape victims of genocide. And these were gang rapes. It was not just one person has broken. No, it was like spread all over because people were running. You know, you would flee from this place. You go to Machindi, then they attack Machindi, then you run from Machindi, you cross to Ndeva. From Ndeva, you go to Natete. People were moving over the 3 months, the 100 days over which actually the genocide intensified. And there are women that will be telling you they've lost count of how many men actually, you know, sort of abused them or gang raped them. It would happen, you know, with gang rapes, and then some were sort of tied on the bed and left there like for an entire week. So men would go, they would come back and rape, and the woman is still tied on the bed, not easing herself, you know, in this very space that she's in. You can imagine, you know, like how that takes away the humanity. So after interviewing up to 200 women over 6 months, you carry this burden. It's a trauma inside you. And as a man, actually now, what makes it even much more complicated. If it was a woman interviewing a woman, there would be that kind of synergy. But this is a man whose looks probably might have some semblance to the man, one of the men that actually did this. Is it possible that it could evoke memories and then someone, you know, could just burst out? There are all these emotions, and you are very slow. Remember, I'm a new journalist. You are inexperienced, and as much as you want to be good, good is built over time. It doesn't come straight away. There's this excitement that, first of all, you are getting because you're talking to someone, and you sort of feel want to push it. Someone is telling you, and then they came into the room, and that's as far as they want to talk. Rwandans are very secretive people. Talking about their personal issues is not something they are good at. They're sort of good at. They would have sayings like, you know, if something happens to you, uraruchukarumira. Kuruchukarumira means like, if something has happened, instead of talking about it, cut your tongue and swallow it. So you're not only just cutting it off so that you can't talk, but you swallow it, and by swallowing it, the likelihood that it can come back is very small. Now, this is the person you are getting to, and you're trying to dig deep. Women whose wombs were cut because they were pregnant and they want to see how a toothy child looks like, and someone just cuts open. The person is still alive until, you know, they die. Getting mop sticks and coins and pushing them into a woman's private parts. These are things that have like mental pictures. You're traveling with this person and listening to these stories. People that they knew, people that they had lived with, people that suddenly, you know, comes in. Now, as a journalist listening to this, there are things that become so deep that you have to cry along. By crying along, have you compromised your story? Because then you sort of get into this person's life instead of doing the asking of the questions. But can you be so, you know, detached that you can actually afford not to feel this? So when you ask me which story stood out, after interviewing these 200, I thought this was heavy. But I end up on the Mediterranean many years later working for the BBC. A boat capsizes with 500 migrants trying to cross into Europe to make a better life. Only about 150 survived. 350 people ended up in the world's largest cemetery at the moment. Well, Gaza could be now, but the Mediterranean Sea, many people have perished. Now you find a person who has just survived, who had their siblings or their mother or their relative, and they capsized and this one survived. And the question is, why did I survive when these ones died? The kind of emotions, what sort of conversation do you have with this person who is having this extreme trauma, picked out of water, warmed up, and their bodies haven't even picked up, the aspect of humanity. Looking into the sea and seeing fish feeding on people's eyes, and you come out of that and you come to do this interview. There are those.
Did you deal with such episodes of trauma each time you are experienced with such stories?
I think part of what saved me is I'm a very religious person. I'm a sheikh. I'm a student of knowledge in Islam. And the knowledge of God and the things that God does, the will of God, what we call qadar, predestination of fate, things that you cannot change and they're there. Some of these came in quite handy, that I would leave, probably get a recitation of the Quran, and actually telling the stories is one way of getting it off your chest. And when you tell a story and you see the impact the story has had, sometimes it's quite helpful because you feel like now it is out there. If anyone pretended they didn't know, now they do. So that in itself has a sort of a satisfying effect. But other things you cannot get rid of. And all you need is probably an episode later on in your life, and it just wakens all of this. And this is really strongly for many journalists. Media owners need to understand, provide situations, safe spaces where journalists can actually sometimes get these things out of their chests. There are times when a journalist, you go to report and then you fall into a difficult situation and one of your colleagues get raped, either by rebels or even by government troops. And you come back, you are sitting back in the car and you know what has just happened when she was taken in the room next door. You cannot have that conversation. How do you just get out and the best you can actually do is just hold their hand. You're just holding their hand and you don't talk, but there are lots of unsaid stuff. How do you ever get someone out of that? These are realities and these are the dangers. And actually you might think that for the ladies it is dangerous. In Congo we had a fellow reporter who was sodomized by, fighters. In an open space, it's not like he was taken to a room. Open space, and that actually takes away everything that makes you a man. This man has never been able to sleep with his wife since then. Because now you just feel like you've been turned into a woman. When do you regain your manness now to be a man? This has been done in public. These are the things as media owners, as you're sending someone's child to a report, this is what is potentially going to happen. And it's quite interesting to imagine the kind of things that you can never imagine being rough, suddenly turning rough. There are demonstrations that you will just go, there's a school, there's this group of schools which have green colors. I'm trying to remember what schools. The bridge schools, which used to be built with Vivao. Yes, there was a time there were demonstrations about those. It looked like it was just innocent, they're coming to parliament. You just feel like it's a normal demonstration. 1 minute before it's turned violent, rubber bullets are coming out, tear gas is coming. What if a canister ended up on your eye? There are all these things that could just turn. How prepared are you for sort of that? There are certain things that you can never get prepared because you don't know what it is. Even if it was violence, you don't know in what form it is going to come. Someone who has been taken by the forces and thrown into a drone, kicked into the ribs, and suddenly you're even trying to find your bearings, your sense of direction. So nothing ever prepares you, but at least knowing can help you to overcome the circumstances. What if, for example, you get kidnapped? You are taken hostage. Hostage taking in places like Afghanistan, Congo recently is a big business with hostage taking. And they will want to take a journalist from a reputable organization because they know they can pay a ransom. They are thriving on ransoms because other sources are sort of becoming difficult to deal with. So a ransom per person is $6,000. And they know they have 4 journalists, the 2 reporters, your producer, and your cameraman. That's about, they count. 6 times 4 is $24,000. Not bad. They will take you in. How do you survive in a situation that you've been taken in and you are in captivity? They have blindfolded you and you have to try to find your bearings. These are trainings that now we are doing because we've been through those situations. I do run such trainings. And because you have those practical experiences, you've heard from those who went through those situations, you can tell a better story.
How do you advise media houses to prepare their journalists for things like this?
Training, absolute training. And media houses should and must be able to provide financing for such trainings. Someone will come and charge you 10 million, whatever, to train your journalists, and you feel it's a lot of money. For the lives at stake, for what is at stake, it's very little money. Prepare the journalists by training. Give them the skills that will help. There are times when what will save you is not so much what you learned, but your own personal life skills. So as a journalist, also do your own training. Get into situations where you train yourself not to breathe as many times as possible. Your heart beats 72 times every minute. Are you able to put pressure on it so that then you sort of try to cut your breath? Can you stay for a minute without breathing? So because they will put you in some limiting spaces which suddenly disorientates you. And if you are the kind of light breather, you're gone. There's a time I was locked up in South Sudan in a container. And the way they locked us in the container was not like they've opened the container and pushed us in. It is an open container at the top, everywhere else is locked up. They use a ladder, they make us climb on the ladder, and then drop. There was another ladder that then they take away once you've gone in. Sweating in the sweltering heat of South Sudan for about 3-4 hours. You've run out of water from your body, you are seriously dehydrated. What do you do to survive? Sometimes memorizing verses helps. I would recite the Quran. Someone who knows the Bible might. If you are the 2 of you telling yourselves stories that will help to try to calm you, because I was inside there with the cameraman, telling yourself stories and promising we will get out of this. The urge to leave sometimes is the difference between living and dying, because you're saying, I'm not dying. I still want to live. There's something I haven't done that I have to do. And that could help you, survive. It's those survival skills. How in your head you sort of mentally prepare yourself. You just know, I'm in circumstances unusual. I have to, be unusual in how I live through this.
We are gearing towards the 2026 elections, and the elections have been each election year there's been an escalation in violence. How do you advise the media houses and the journalists to prepare, even when we are not sure of how it will look like? We need to have a plan. How do you advise them to prepare? One, for the media house and the journalist individually.
The starting point is recognizing the importance of journalism. Even for governments, even for NGOs, everybody needs journalism. Without journalism, quite a lot might not happen. There are times when, even if it doesn't sound very good for the government, knowing what is happening helps to mitigate how they get out of it or what they can improve about it. So government has programs. It needs them known. You cannot just need journalists when they have to talk about your PDM happening and so on. You should be able to and willing to listen when something is negative and needs correction. We are the eyes of society and we are the ears of society, because what we hear, we tell, and what we've told probably gets acted upon. So starting from that premise alone, journalism is not a crime. Journalism has to be told. But I also have to be honest. some of our journalism is so lacking. The level of unprofessionalism that I see in many journalists beggars belief. So, because a lot of times you'll come, you're a very good speaker, I have my English, I can dress nicely, you get given a job and then you start becoming a journalist. No training, no nothing, they just feel like they will go with your flow. You bring all your bad manners and you introduce them into the profession. So I think there has to be very serious training that prepares journalists to become who they should be. Many people in journalism are not necessarily products of mass communication school. Yes. Many are people, like I said, I'm a teacher by profession. Sorry, that's my background. That's where I came from. But I think I've made a relatively good journalist. So with adequate training, with the skills, they come to empower you with already the talent that you have, the charisma that you have. It adds on to that and brings in all the difference. So having said that, we are going into elections. You've spoken about escalation coming in. Again, training. Media houses must. I wish I was UCC. If I was UCC, I would make it probably a compulsory condition. Just like they need certificates for a journalist to practice, you need to have a certificate. It doesn't have to be that you have, even if you came from economics or whatever, you can still make a very good economics or journalist in other fields, but at least you need some basic qualifications that get you in there. Because then that establishes at least a bar upon which you can start now practicing. Training becomes absolutely important. Going into elections, every media house, and this is a call, I know it might sound expensive, you need it. You need it for your station, you need it for your journalists, you need it for your business to continue running. HEFAT, hostile environment first aid training. So the hostile environment is just to know those circumstances. What could potentially break into a riot? What could potentially happen like this? How do you hide money? You get to a roadblock, the roadblock has been established, they say empty your pockets. Sometimes they will just actually they will make you undress. That becomes very uncomfortable because as you are thinking about holding here, other things now are exposed. So as you get into that, how do you deal with that situation? If you get into a war zone, you've been taken by the army. I've been on several embeds with the Ugandan army, with the Rwandan army, with the British forces, like teams go and they are in Afghanistan, they are in Iraq before that. If you are an embed, how do you act around that? Soldiers can look very friendly to you, but that's until the firing starts. A commander will order, don't try to think you know him when the bullets are flying. His life, your life are all in his hands, and he has to make sure you're alive. If you're going to think you're going to bring your journalism into a battlefront, you are dead.
Your camera as a weapon.
So all this comes in quite. Because I remember there's a particular incident that I was in, and we had been filming with my cameraman. We filmed a very nasty sort of episode. Once the dust had settled, the commander came to me and said, "Kassim, where is the tape?" Yes, they are picking up the bodies, the injured and so on. And there's a Kassim, where is the tape? And I won't tell you what happened. But somehow you managed to get away with it. So there are all these dynamics in terms of you going in. When you're going in, just look at every situation as being a potential hazard. Situations that look very innocent can suddenly burst out of proportion.
Thank you so much. Your closing remarks for this initiative at Ukweli Africa.
Well, investigative journalism is a big thing and we need it the more. It has its very serious dangers because the kind of exposés or exposures that you are doing might get someone out of a job or out of money and into jail. They will fight back, but you need courage. This is a profession that needs to continue. This is a job that has to be done because of the benefits that lie in. So for the journalists doing it, for the people doing it, just know you are there for a mission. And the mission does not necessarily have to be easy. You need to be stern. You need to have your facts. There's the best weapon for any journalist, investigative or not, is facts. Once you have your facts, because someone will say you've made this allegation, blah, 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 where is your evidence? A journalist's strength lies in the ability to avail the evidence. So, and the way some of the evidence is so hidden away that you need to be an investigative journalist to dig it up. But even the best investigative journalists are only that because there are people in the back, whistleblowers, who decide, looking at the system and finding that things are not going the way they should, someone is not telling the truth, the ability to come out, and we need these people to continue coming out, because that's the only way that investigative journalism can thrive. Sometimes all you need is a tip-off. A journalist just needs that. Give me a hint and I'll do the cooking. I'll do the ingredients, but you've told me that's the saucepan, that's where the gas is. The rest is for me, leave it to me. So you'll need the whistleblowers. Investigative journalism cannot exist without whistleblowers. But 3, to the governments. Governments need to understand that, through all of this, the intention is not to overthrow a government. The intention is always to say what is not happening. And it is in the interest of governments to actually know. That is why the best weapon in war is intelligence. It's not the weapons, it's intelligence. How much information do you have about a situation? What is the person's strength? What could they possibly do? What are they planning? Because by stopping what is being planned, you actually avoid the use of the big weapons that you'd have needed to use if they actually went ahead with their plan. So intelligence is very, very critical. And journalists can actually provide a basis for intelligence. We provide the tip-offs where now the intelligence agencies can go and do. We are not spies, but we provide, what is necessary within societies. So the message is, this is a good initiative, and I hope it can be maintained. Or to a hostile environment, first thing is have a fake ID. I'm not saying that it just gives you I can see Laura looking at me and just sort of thinking, am I crazy? But there are times when that ID can come in quite handy. You might find that, for example, you used to work somewhere, you no longer work there, but the reason that you worked there made you have some level of importance. In the circumstances of danger, while that might look like impersonation, you might need that. 2, have some money on you. There is someone who will kick the life out of you simply because you don't have any money and they are desperate. Money can buy you out of trouble. And I'm not talking a lot of money. It is just basic money. There are times you'll need to run. If you're going to run and you need to jump onto a board and you don't have money, how do you get around that? So there is just have a little money on you that can, get you out of harm's way. 3, look out for each other. There are journalists who think they are more important, than others. The problem is you will be the person behind the camera, but you forget, you're the person in front of the camera, but you forget there is a person behind the camera who makes you look good, who gives you the ability to be there. Think about that cameraman. There's the producer who is thinking, there's this question you haven't asked, which now becomes very critical. There's the editor who is just waiting there to sort of receive what has come, thrash through it, and then get the cream out of it. There's the outputter. All of these people, it's a sort of a chain. It's a chain that allows news. By the time people see the news and you look so good, there are all these important people in the line. Now, look out for each other, especially if you're going out. There are techniques that you should have. And I don't know whether the camera can capture this, but if we are going into a situation of demonstration, what we will do is, if you can stand, please. Now, I'm your camera person, you are the reporter. Because I'm filming, you are the person protecting me. Now, you put your hand in there. So you are facing there because, I'm the one holding the camera. And you are the one now, if you're pulling me out, I'm continuing to film because it's a demonstration. You are the one seeing, so you are holding onto me all like that. So if it's uncomfortable, you might not feel comfortable, like holding my hand. The trouser here, that's why the belt line. So put your hand through the belt line, you grip there, and then for me I continue, because that allows me even much more flexibility, because if I was like this, then probably the camera is heavy and I can't control a few things. But if you're holding there, you are taking me. And so if you're taking me, that's how I'm going. And if you think I'm not going right, then you can just pull me back. So that's one safe way, and it's a good exit strategy. Because if you're thinking there is danger, start pulling out. The technique with that is, you have me, so, and I know if, since you are the one who has me, I feel much safer. We pull out. 4, have a particular language that you use that is only yours. In homes, you might be husband and wife. Yeah, it's a code. It might be husband and wife. A visitor has come and there's no sugar. For you to come and say no sugar or whisper in their ears is too obvious. You can use a word. You can say Rugazi. Rugazi now, the traffic jam in Rugazi is just a nightmare. Makes you not want to go there. Rugazi, is sugar. So you find a way of sort of communicating, but you should have between yourselves. And those should be pointers in terms of danger. You can be in a situation and you think this situation is getting out of hand. If you make it so obvious to veil for someone who wants to harm you, they will get to that. So you need to be able, either it might be that code might be read through, eye contact. There are journalists who, because of their self-importance, they've come in here, I'm Kassim Kayiira. You forget looking at your camera person. You forget looking at your producer. Keep eye contact. Every 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, just look. Because it might be that someone is telling you, that is telling me, and someone might just say, like, you pretend like you are wiping. So this is cut. Like, disappear. We need to leave here quickly. Find a way of it can be your own style of how you do it, but have a way. And then finally have a rendezvous point, always. An RV point is chitabuse tulemedwa, because you might even be talking about holding the trouser and whatever. Tear gas comes and everyone has to scamper and take cover. And there was a time I was in Cameroon on the border, Central African Republic and Cameroon, and the firefight flared between peacekeepers and Cameroonian troops who wanted bribes before they could open the gate to let refugees go in. Fighting started and I ended up in a channel, Mumara, in a trench. My cameraman is there filming, he's stuck, I'm in a trench. Trench is almost a meter deep, so I'm sort of totally hidden away. And I have to do my crawling. Chankwanzi came in motion now. You think I'm big? You have not seen me in trouble times. I get so light. So you need to have this kind of flexibility. But when we know if trouble comes out, our rendezvous point is this point. If after 15 minutes I've not seen you there, I'm going. So I'll know there is trouble and I have to report headquarters. So you have those sort of little skills that I think every journalist should sort of have. Keep remembering them, keep reminding yourself, because in times of danger, sometimes the situation is such that everybody is so traumatized even to think about all the textbook advices doesn't work. So you need to have at least a little bit of a sixth sense that manages to keep you working. I'm so grounded, I'm so down to earth, and I feel like whatever I've got is not me, it's God. And I think once you know you don't own something, you are careful with it because the owner might take it away. So just like you become famous for good reasons, you might just become suddenly infamous or famous for the wrong reasons. And you don't want that. So I don't want that to get in the way of my ability to talk to people respectably, value everyone. It's quite amazing. Like, in life, there are people that you will be shocked about just in terms of their value. There are people you go to and they look so normal, so mandazi in our context, until you get into a situation and this is the only person who is going to get you out of that. And they can, take you through a route you didn't expect. They can tell you, and that becomes your escape route when everything looked like it was dire and you're finished. So these people, I don't know how many times I've been helped by people you would least expect. It's not about even escape. It might be about a good story. And the person who helps you get through that, to that good story is a person you didn't expect. I love those sorts of things. You might not know the importance of a maid until they've left. And then you see how everything at home, you can't find things and it's your own home. And they've been there for 2 years and you just took it for granted. So I don't take anyone for granted. I feel that there's some good in everyone. You just need to find it. So my effort is actually to try to see what good is there from this person that I could make use of.
Well, you heard it from seasoned, multilingual, veteran journalist Kassim Kayiira. We've had a very insightful conversation, and I hope that you've learned a thing or two. The 5 tips, please, journalists. These are very important. Keep them on your fingertips, because if there is no safety, there is no story. There's no story for you to take to that editor that is on your case. There's no story for you to give your editor to put on the TV or on the paper with your byline when you're dead. So please take care of yourselves. This is Ukweli Africa. Thank you for joining the newsroom, and I am Laura Nalugwa.
Without journalism, a lot might not happen. We are not spies. We are the eyes of society. We are the ears of society, because what we hear, we tell. Women whose wombs were cut because they were pregnant and they want to see how a Tutsi child looks like, only about 150 survived. Looking into the sea and seeing fish feeding on people's eyes, and you come out of that and you come to do this interview. You carry this burden, it's a trauma inside you. If you're going to think you're going to bring your journalism into a battlefront, you are dead. Soldiers can look very friendly to you, but that's until the firing starts. Journalists can actually provide a basis for intelligence. Everybody needs journalism.